Hello and welcome to the finale episode of the Orca Pod covering Canberra Survivor. My co-hosts have abandoned me. I'm not sure where Annabelle is. I think she's preparing for her yoga retreat. And Max and all his lukewarm takes that I know all of you have been desperately missing is not responding to my messages. I'm not sure what's going on, but that is fine, because what we've got lined up today is 3 interviews with the 5th, 4th, and 3rd placed people from Canberra Survivor. And then following that, next week, I will have an interview with Nick and Ma and do a real in-depth deep dive with Ma about her experience and her win. Now, it's an interesting situation we've got here because I know that last night the on-brand show went for a hell of a long time. It went for, I think, almost 3 hours. So I'm not anticipating big viewership. I think we all might be a bit survived out, but I know that a lot of you will listen to this podcast thereafter. And we're going to take this opportunity really to do some really interesting deep dive interviews with all of these 3 contestants that I have tonight. And it will be the one-on-one situation. It's going to be a bit more intimate, and we can really get into their game, because when you do play all the way to the end, I think you have an incredible experience, and you've definitely got something to offer. No matter who you are or what you did, you played a game that got you to the finale episode, and that's something to be proud of. So first up, I do have Anna. She is waiting backstage, but she's gone off video, she's ready. All right. So I'm going to bring in Anna. Now, firstly, I want to thank Anna so much for coming on, because she is in the United States of America. It is like 7 a.m. in the morning or 6 a.m. in the morning. I don't know where she is. Very early. I'm not a morning person, so I do appreciate her coming on. And I'm going to bring her in now. Here she comes. Hello, Anna. Thank you for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
I need to turn up my stuff. So again, I really appreciate you coming on, and I don't know, appreciate you're out of time. I don't know, have you been listening to the Orca Pod? Have you been following our show?
I didn't actually know it existed until you messaged me. The reason I missed that, but are they recorded? Because I'll definitely listen back if they are, because I'm sad.
They are.
Perfect.
You can listen back on podcast if you go to. So what differs us? Have you been listening to the on-brand one?
Yeah, because it was on the YouTube.
Yeah.
So I saw it. This one. Yeah.
So we're a bit more spicy, because we're off-brand, and to be honest, Annabelle brings most of the spice, and she's not with me today, unfortunately. But you can watch them all on the Live Reality Games channel, or you can see them. You can listen to them on the Live Reality Games podcast feed. So what's different about our show is it's a sort of worldwide LRG podcasting platform, which covers a wide variety of LRGs in Australia, in America, in other places as well. So there's lots of them all around the world. And the good way of doing it, is we do this, and then people in America will see that, Canberra existed, and they might check it out. So it has a bit of a thing. And plus, we don't have to be nice to Dan all the time. There was a lot of criticism leveled for the use of umbrellas.
I can't even remember. It was so long ago.
Have you been watching? Have you been watching as it went?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Yes, the umbrellas were, when it was so wet. And I don't believe that Survivor players should have umbrellas.
No, actually, I didn't have an umbrella. I remember that I was like very depressed and cold. So.
But no umbrella. That makes you a real Survivor.
Survivor player. I'm not sure about some of the others, but.
Well, when we had Zaddy Simon, that's what Annabelle calls Simon. When we had Zaddy Simon on earlier, he was also dismissive of those that used the umbrellas.
Yeah.
We can talk a bit about your game and the approach you had. We've been following your journey, and we've really enjoyed it. Our view of it, and you haven't been listening, was very much you felt that you weren't being listened to, that you weren't being heard by your fellow members of the Orange Tribe, and in Merge, you're like, screw all you, I'm forging my own path and making my own game, and whatever happens, happens. That's my elevator's pitch of your game. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. Sums it up nicely. Yeah.
Who did you have the best relationships with out there during the game?
I think that's one area where I actually struggled, is that I didn't have any super strong relationships the whole game, which really sucked. But I think in Win You, I perceived my strongest relationship to be with Haley, but it wasn't mutual. But I think that like she was on my side. So that was who I viewed as my strongest ally. In Win You, I was also working with James at the start. But like when we got to merge, that all changed. But I did view him as a close ally. I didn't talk to any of the others that much at that point. And then in merge, I think Ma, the genius that she is, she convinced me in the first few votes that she was my closest ally. Watching back, I'm like, oh my god, she was everyone's closest ally. But that's what I perceived at the start of merge, and then I realized sort of what she was doing in the middle of merge.
Well, she was your closest ally, though, because she voted for Sophie at the final 5. She didn't vote for you.
Yeah.
So she was still true to you. It was Mykl that decided to vote you out there, really. It was his decision. How do you think you would have gone had Mykl... Because I think Mykl made a mistake there, to be honest. But I've actually pre-recorded his interview, so I've talked to him about it. And he agrees he made a mistake there.
Oh, really?
He should have voted out Sophie at that one. How do you think you would have gone in a final tribal council situation? What was your experience with Survivor coming into the game? Are you a super fan or are you just a casual fan? What's your sort of level?
So I'm not a super fan, and I don't watch Survivor at all, really. I just don't enjoy watching it that much, but I love playing it. So my experience was, you probably haven't heard of it, but there was this thing called Zoom Survivor in 2020 in lockdown, and it was like a completely separate like YouTube show. So I was a part of that. And then
like Perjury or Outcast and a little of that, or
I interviewed for Perjury, but then I actually pulled out before I played because I was just had a lot going on, so I didn't have the time for it. But I haven't. Yeah, so I played Zoom Survivor in 2020, and then after that, I found this community like sort of through that, because people from this community watched that and they contacted me and sort of brought me more into this community. So I played a few of the like online games. I'm not sure if I actually played a Survivor one though, but just like, you know, those minis that are online and stuff. But I definitely didn't have the knowledge that a lot of people had there, and I think I was quite naive, and like watching back I was like, wow, these people really know what they're doing. So,
well, it is tricky with the very short time you have to make those plans, and I think this was part of the issue that maybe you had in when you're saying you didn't have these close relationships, because you were there trying to communicate what you thought might want to happen, but you're sort of working through the game as well as the moves, where they're like, oh, you know, when James was, for example, trying to explain to you his ridiculously complex merge move, but he was just having no regard to your feelings, and that you didn't have a great relationship with Mel, and that, you know, you weren't gonna play your idol on it. Like, it's
yeah, I don't know what he was thinking with that. Like, I really like James, but I was like, there's no way I'm playing my super idol for Mel. And I was listening to, like, I actually was contemplating working with him and merge, but then when he started talking to me like that and like telling me what to do, and it was these ideas that I just wasn't on board with, I was like, nah, you gotta I'm not sticking around for this.
And then I think other players recognized Ma, and I think Malcolm, to an extent, recognized that you just wanted someone who would actually listen to you and engage in a conversation with you and like discuss options.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely what I was after. And I think that Ma really realized that. That's why, like, I went on side with her. And also Malcolm, I really regret, like, I'm so mad that Malcolm went, because at the time on that vote, you know how Ma stole my vote? I hadn't decided I was going to vote out. Like, and that was my fault. I'm a very indecisive person, and that's one of the things I would change in my gameplay watching back. I'm like, just make a decision, because I was always super paranoid, because I never played something like this before. I think my level of paranoia and indecision, if I could go back, I would just be a lot more decisive and like certain in what I was doing, and I would have made a decision on that vote. And I regret, like, because I told Ma I don't know who I'm going to vote, and I didn't commit to her side, and I didn't commit to Malcolm's side either. I knew both plans and I hadn't made a decision. So I wish.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No.
Is that why you felt okay with Ma having stolen your vote after the fact? Because you didn't see, like, she managed to gloss over that sufficiently that you were okay with it. Was that the reason why you were
Oh,
sort of
I was
understood?
so okay with it because I hadn't made a decision and she sort of made the decision for me. And I totally
Yeah.
get, because if I was in her position, I would have done the same thing. Because, like, yeah, I hadn't chosen where I was going and she knew what she wanted to do. She'd made a decision. So she's like, this will let me make that decision and let it play out. So, that was my mistake. And I wish that I decided to keep Malcolm in. I can't remember who the other person was. Tell Ma that I was voting for Malcolm and then actually vote the other way. That's what I regret on that vote, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. How do you think you would have gone had you made it to the final tribal council? Do you think you could have given a compelling argument? Do you
Yeah.
think you could have got a few votes?
So actually, you know how Sophie said to me that she thinks I'm not well spoken, or she didn't say to me, she was talking to other people that like she thinks I wouldn't speak well under pressure and that like I might not be well spoken and stuff. But I don't do well on the spot in group situations, but I do love to talk and I love like debating and things like that. So I actually think I would have done quite well at Final Tribal. I think like the question format throws me off a bit. Like I wish if we got to write a whole speech, I think I could have done really well because I would have had time
Yes.
and really think about like what I wanted to say. So I'm not sure how I would have gone under the pressure with the questions, but I do think there was like merit to my game and that I was quite underestimated. And yeah, so I think I could have sold myself.
I think so. I think there's a story in being the last win you. You
Yeah,
would probably need to gather up a number of the win you votes, which I
yeah,
think would have been difficult for you because of John's pre-existing relationship with
mm,
Ma and your up and down relationship with Mel.
yeah.
How did you feel watching with Mel constantly referring to you as Amy? I think a little bit originally as a mistake and then later on as a bit of a joke.
I thought it was funny. Because she told me that during the game. She's like, I thought it's like in the actual game. No, I've been calling you Amy. I wasn't quite sure of your name. So then it was kind of a running joke even amongst us, like within the game. So I wasn't surprised to hear that at all. I thought it's hilarious. I love Mel. I think she's so like bubbly and friendly, and yeah, I just thought it was funny. I didn't take any offense to it whatsoever. Yeah.
It was a wonderful arc with you guys basically becoming a pair in the final six, with Mykl and Ma and Sophie and Nick being the other pairs, that you guys were. And then in that confessional, she actually gets your name right. It's like you've earned the right now to go ahead and actually say your name properly. I thought that was a funny sort of turn of events.
Like the stories come full circle. I loved it.
Yeah. Um, how did you feel? We've been touching on this a bit with a few people, and I think this is the final. What was the final five challenge? I'm trying to remember when I watched it on the weekend. Can you refresh me? Only my co-host refresh me. Do you remember?
Wait, which one was it?
The final five. Well, that was the water spitting, wasn't it? Were you
I
doing the water spitting?
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I sucked at that. Yeah. I didn't know what I was doing that one. Yeah, I remember that.
And then the maths one.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Yes, the maths one. Was that a skill for you? I can't recall.
No.
No, obviously not.
I suck at spitting water in bottles apparently. Yeah.
Yeah, and then there was the maths challenge. How did you feel about, like, we've been talking about this on the show, and I talked a bit about my interview with Mykl, so then I'll talk about it with Sophie because I think it's really relevant about the Sophie helping Nick in the challenge. Like, there's a line. Is there a line, or is it fine? It's a bit of a tough situation for Survivor because in real Survivor they actually allow it from time to time.
Yeah, like in terms of if she should have been allowed to, totally. Like I don't care if she helps him, go for it. I think that's fine. I don't think she should have been penalized. I don't even know if she was actually penalized or if she just chose to penalize herself. I wasn't really aware of what was going on. And I'm so glad that she did help him though, because I'm like, that really shows me where your alliances lie. Like I wanted to get Nick out and so did Ma. Like that was all genuine. And I was like, wow, this proven to me that Sophie is absolutely not having it with any of my ideas, any of my plans. So I think it was like silly of her, but I think it should be permitted legal sense.
I think you're spot on. Like it's a social game, and she's showing how the level of social connection that her and Nick have by doing that, and that's a choice, and the other players can react to that choice appropriately
Exactly.
by targeting her or whatever. Like that's a perfectly legitimate part of the game. I'm on board with that. Well, we're in furious agreement. Did you have how was the experience overall for you? So you're not a huge fan. You've played maybe a Zoom game. Did you go out there thinking it was going to be as tough as it was? How? And I understand you zipped off to America pretty soon after. That's what someone mentioned to me.
I had no idea going into it how tough it was going to be. I completely underestimated it. And I think, and I had the best time, don't get me wrong. It was, definitely a highlight. But, yeah, I didn't actually apply for it. So I think, everyone's been talking about how many people in Win U were fill-ins, and no one's mentioned I was actually a fill-in as well. So I think it was almost all of us when you, look at it like that.
How last minute of a fill-in were you?
Not super last minute. I think I still had, I can't remember, but I think it was still a few weeks or something in advance.
So were you a fill-in or more of a recruit, I think is probably the better term.
A recruit. I don't know. Dan I don't know how these things work, but I just got a message from Dan on Facebook saying, would you be interested in playing? And I said, yeah. Would be fun.
It's quite difficult with the casting process, and I was part of the casting team for Melbourne Survivor 4 with John. John and I actually did it all together.
Yeah.
And you get a lot of applications from men, and you got to work through all those to find the best ones, and you do struggle to make up the women.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of reasons for that, but the one I think is quite important is, a lot of women are going to say, am I going to sign up to spend 2 days in the wilderness with a bunch of people I don't know? That doesn't sound very safe.
Yeah. No, I mean, I wasn't scared at all. I was just naive. I was like, this sounds, I just didn't know it existed. So when he messaged me about it, I was like, that sounds awesome. Something I'd love to do. I love the outdoors. I love being outside or things like that. I'm from Melbourne though. So I was like, am I going to go all the way to Canberra? But I thought, it would just be something super fun. But watching Nick in the finale when he's going on about how much training he did and running and drinking coffee, I was like, I literally just didn't prepare at all. I had no game plan really. I kind of just hopped on the bus and was like, I'll see what happens. I had no strategy. That's something I kind of regret. If I could have this, I think having a little taste of it once, it's made me, if I could go back, I would be fully prepared, strategic. I feel like I'd have all the training done. But I think not doing that also maybe helped me a little bit because I was not nervous and I was just I just went into it with no expectations and was ready to just see what happened naturally as well.
I think you're absolutely right. Everyone says that if they play it again, they'd play so much better. And I think that was pretty evident. You haven't seen how Ma played on Melbourne. That's just about to start getting released this weekend. But you can tell how well she was playing in this game, having had the experience of playing in another. And nothing compares, doing orgs and doing a Zoom game. They're fine, but they're nothing to actually give. Yeah.
For sure.
Well, I really want to thank you for coming on. I know it's really early in the USA where you are. I really appreciate that. I wouldn't get up early. I'm not an early person.
I am every day, so it's actually not that bad.
Okay, well, but I do really appreciate it. And we really enjoyed you. You were, I think, a real fan favorite. And I think you did an amazing job and had a great arc in terms of that, stop pushing me around. I'm doing what I want to do now. And sort of found, your voice and found people that would listen to you. And then you got to play the way you wanted to play. But I think you've had a lot of wonderful reflection here too about the ways that you could play better. And I think that's important for every sort of player that there is.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot.
No, thanks. Thanks, Anna.
Bye.
Well, that was wonderful. And now I have a video recording of Mykl. So Mykl, I think, is traveling tonight. And so after he did a very late interview on the On Brand pod last night, he jumped on with me and we recorded an interview that went for a while. I must say he's a very verbose person and I think he had a lot of great input to give. So I'm going to run that video. I'll still be here. I might drop out of the screen, but I'll be here. And if you have comments and you want to put them up, feel free. And then when we finish with the pre-recorded one of Mykl, we'll bring in Sophie, which I think will be really, I can't wait to get her insights. So if you just bear with me for a moment. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate you making some extra time to come on. I know you weren't able to join the one we were doing live. So thank you for coming on to the Orca Pod.
Thank you for having me. Really glad to be here. Have watched a few of the episodes, have had some really good chats with some of the past contestants. So looking forward to what we dive into tonight.
I think you're perfectly suited for the Orca Pod. I think you've got a big personality. I think you've got a lot of strategy. I think you're sassy. That's what we're all about on the Orca Pod. We're about having fun and spice. So if you've got spicy takes that you want to give, this is the place. I think you can really bring it. Mykl and I, for those watching at home, have a history. We once played a fundraising game of the weakest link for Melbourne Survivor, in fact, run by the legendary Billy. And I repeatedly voted for Mykl to be eliminated.
You tried.
Even though eventually he got taken out, even though he was in no way the weakest link. That happened to you a bit in this game, where people kept wanting to vote you out, even though I don't necessarily think that was always the best move for them. What do you feel about how often you were targeted in the game?
Well, for me personally, I feel as if in the pre-merge phase for Kubadang, I was lucky where I was on the stronger tribe for once. I played a few orgs and, live versions of the game, so single day games, where I always end up on the win new equivalent of of the two tribes. Yeah. So it was great to finally avoid tribal council for the most part pre-merge. So feel as if the pre-merge phase was pretty cruisy for Kubadang.
It was cruisy, yeah. But can we just talk while we're in pre-merge? The edit made it seem like you weren't in the core. Is that how you felt at the time?
Oh, the edit.
Well,
I have a few problems with that.
This is the off-brand program, so you can say whatever the hell you want.
Oh, no, that's all right. I was on the on-brand one, and I was giving them a piece of my mind with regards to the edit, and I've spoken to a few people about it. A few people have come to me saying like, oh my God, the edit and how I saw you in the game are completely, different. They're completely 180. Yeah, so for me, of course, I wasn't in the core three of Sophie, Nick, and Ma. They had their core three alliance, which they had formed. I wasn't even at the time aware of it. For me, Ma was always my closest ally in the game, as I was for her, even though she did me dirty at the final four. So I feel as if I probably wasn't as aware of that because she was at, multiple points throughout the game wanting to take out Nick as well as Sophie. So, I mean, I feel as if she wasn't as tied into that as they were with her. But for me, I felt as if I was fairly well connected within the tribe. Look, if we maybe had lost 3 or 4 challenges, then I might have been in a little bit of trouble. So if we got down to 5, because I feel as if after Banfield had left, there was maybe one further tribal council where I was feeling pretty safe.
Probably Joe would go at that one.
I feel as if, Joe was potentially going to be the next one. But then after that, once we're down to 5, then it becomes a really slippery sort of slope. And I mean, the chances of my survival are really up in the air. And I'm not too sure how things would have gone there. But
my read of it, speaking to people, like watching the show, reading what I've seen in the edit, and also speaking to everyone that's come out of the show. So if you got in this hypothetical scenario we're discussing right now, it would be between you and Malcolm. And I think Nick and Sophie might have pushed it onto you and, in a 3-2 situation, possibly.
Yeah. So definitely at that 5, I think, because I know I would have definitely been gunning for Malcolm at the 5 and he would have been gunning for me. I know that for a fact I have Mara in my corner.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that Sophie is voting with
Nick?
Mel. No, with Mel.
Okay.
Yeah, I know exactly. Whatever Nick does, Sophie does too. I feel as if look, the edit again really pushed that with her, but I mean, Sophie's a really smart person for someone that's never played the game before. I mean, she did have that ability to, and I feel as if earlier on maybe she wasn't as tied into Nick.
Yes,
as she was later in the game.
we've been huge stands of Sophie on the Orca Pod. You haven't listened to them all, and that's perfectly understandable. Huge fans of hers. I feel like the edit leaned into the things she did at the challenges to help Nick, to then make it just seem like she's just doing whatever he wanted. I don't think that was her game. And equally, that's what James said at the tribal, and I don't think that's really fair either. That was the way they sort of painted her. And she got no votes, so they're telling a story of someone who got no votes, and that sort of fits that story, right?
Yeah,
but
of course, exactly. The edit needs to fit the story. I feel as if like the edit has suggested pre-merge, early merge. Sophie was playing a great game. She was really well connected. Had a lot of people in her corner that were backing her up. She, a smart, switched-on person. I feel as if it did sort of start to get to a point where she might have felt as if she didn't really have a shot at winning. So what
do you agree with that? Do you agree with that? Because we were such fans on our pod.
Yes, for me personally, I feel as if in sort of, because as you're playing and you're working with these people and you're voting against people, you're constantly thinking, what sort of resume does this person have? What sort of resume does that person have? What moves have they pulled? What moves have they pulled? And if they get to final tribal council and I was on the jury, who am I likely to vote for? Because if there is someone that, without a shadow of a doubt, I'm going to vote for them as the winner, then they're obviously too big of a threat for me and I need to take them out before I get to that stage. And for me personally, as much as I absolutely love and adore Sophie, she wasn't someone that I was considering as ever voting for to win the game. Yeah. I feel as if, she didn't do enough on her own. And again, of course, Nick is such a sort of dominant force, and it really sort of can seem as if, in a partnership, as if one person is taking complete control, because I know that with, it seemed as if with Ma and I, that Ma was the person that was in complete control. And of course, she played an absolutely fantastic game, but I feel as if, the edit didn't really quite show, some of the strategy that I was involved in. So
let's dive into that. And we're not going to discredit anything that Ma's done. She did play an incredible game. It's amazing.
100%. And I still feel as if she was the best player of the season, and I will say she was better than me, and I feel as if she deserved to win.
But you were shown as her loyal sidekick, particularly running into the end game. And even earlier in the piece, a lot of what you got was just sort of agreeing with her in the edit. I agree. I would say I do this. I agree. Would you agree with? Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that edit and the way in which that was perceived. I have friends within the Orc community, so a few people that followed along and watched, and I was getting comments constantly that some were giving me shit saying why are you playing such a shit game? You look like you're doing nothing. You're sitting there, and this is not like the Mykl that we know. And oops, sorry, and the censored light has just gone off, so I am in complete darkness now, so I'm just going to move to some light. But
in this light right now, you look a lot like David from Schitt's Creek.
I'm not too sure if that's a compliment.
I consider that a huge compliment.
I'll take that.
Do you think that's a huge compliment?
I mean, look, it could be worse. It could be much worse. But yeah, no. So, in terms of the edit, it 100% seemed as if I was there. As Ma's sidekick, and I was playing for her. That was 100% not the case. I feel as if, so from the get-go, we were each other's number one. She was my number one from the get-go. I never had another number one within the game. I feel as if, she didn't either. And I mean, we've spoken about this in detail since. And I mean, in the pre-merge phase, it seemed as if, we were nothing more than, acquaintances really, so it seemed as if we weren't really that close.
I think we had you paired off with Banfield earlier on.
No, and that was completely again, so many people have asked about that, and Banfield was someone that so in terms of tribe mates, he was probably the person that I was third closest to in the tribe, so I was never the closest with him. But again, the edit made it seem as if I was closest to him and that I was the person that was pushing for that Banfield vote. I wasn't, and I wasn't closest to him. But so with regards to Ma, It was never really shown pre-merge, and even in the early merge stage, it seemed, it never was really shown that we were close, but we were close from the get-go. Every single vote, we would talk to each other in detail, in length. We would go through all the pros and the cons of every single vote, and if we do this, then how is this going to affect X, Y, and Z? So I feel as if we really sort of aligned our strategies aligned. We were on the sort of same wavelength, and that was really not shown at all. I mean, anyone that knows me, that's seen me play these games, I'm very strategic. I'm very calculated. I don't ever play for other people. I always play for myself. Of course, I will say to people, oh, I'm playing, I won't say that I'm playing for you because they won't believe that. But, the way in which you speak to people, you've got to really sell yourself to them and sell yourself as a valuable ally. And I can see how it was sort of perceived that, I was playing for her, because of course, with any conversation that you have with anyone, you want to make it seem as if, you're playing with them, they're your top priority. So I guess that was sort of perceived and slightly twisted to make it seem as if I was doing things for Ma, but clearly that wasn't true, because at Final 5, I went against Ma. I left her in the dark. I left her in a technical minority where she was the only person that was left in the game that had voted against Sophie at Final 4. So I was definitely not playing for Ma. I was always, first and foremost, I was looking out for myself and what was best for my game.
In retrospect, would it have been better for you to actually vote out Sophie at that vote? Do you think?
Of course, yeah. So the thing is, after you've been voted out of the game, it's only natural that you look back and you go, oh my god, where did I go wrong? What could I have done differently to change the outcome? Even if it's not, at least getting myself to that final 3 stage, so I can at least pitch my case to the jury. And look, in hindsight, of course, splitting up Sophie and Nick would have been great, because then, because they sort of came as a duo at that point, and, they were never going to fight against each other.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it was sort of, I was, did
you see Anna as a real threat at that point? Did you think she could, win if she was at the final Tribal Council?
I feel as if, a lot of people really underestimated Anna. Of course, she was so quiet and demure and soft-spoken, and she seemed as if she, she wasn't sort of leading votes, and that, she wasn't, at the forefront. But I sort of saw beyond that, and I did see her as, a really sound and sound player that really thought things through. She was, strategic. I think
that's all very true, but would she have got the votes? Like, she'd have to pick up the orange votes, and I don't know if they were there for her.
I feel like, of course, Mel's probably not a vote for Anna or Amy. She'd probably get her name wrong if she wrote it down.
Look, she might. Mel was such a shit stirrer that she might have voted for her, but written Amy just for the fun.
I know, just for shits and giggles. Look, I mean, I've gone back and I've gone like, if we have, this scenario or this makeup at the final 3, then who gets whose votes? And I feel as if, even though it's definitely not a guarantee that she's getting those votes, the fact that, when you came into the merge, down in numbers, their backs against the wall, and to have, then potentially survived those odds and, flipped her way through those cracks, that, that really sort of only adds to her resume. And at that point, I 100% saw her as a bigger threat than I did Sophie. I mean, yeah.
And I think you're also probably, and just hearing everything you're saying, you're like, I need to actually make a move that's different to the ones that Ma is making. I need to show a differentiation in my game. I'm sure that was part of your thinking as well.
Yeah, partially. So yeah, it was partially, obviously, not because up until that point, Ma and I, had really done everything together. When she said she would do something, she did it. When I said I would do something, I would do it. And, that was the first point in which I didn't. So I sort of had one up on her, if you want to say that. Yeah. But, a point of differentiation. But also at the same time, and I feel as if it wasn't really highlighted, I personally saw, Anna as much more of a threat to my game than I did Sophie.
Did you think that now, do you know that the challenge would have been fire making, or is that just the word that people were using in the episode?
Well, so yeah, no, of course, we didn't know. I think, oh God, I can't even remember if at final, at what point it was that we knew that it was going to be a final three, even because, of course,
Yeah.
sometimes it's a final two, sometimes it's a final three. I feel as if it was quite late in the game that we found out about that. But at final four, of course, in recent Survivor history, it has been that the winner, will take someone through to the final. To the final three, and then the other two have to.
I mean, though, you
face
were
off in
talking. Sorry, I meant that you were all discussing you could send me to fight. Like you could do the traditional Survivor situation, not the new Survivor. The 2-2. Mark would vote with you, and you could do a 2-2, and then you would go into whatever challenge exists against Sophie.
Yeah.
You were saying fire making. I don't know if you know that's what it is, because certainly.
Yeah. So if it was a deadlock vote, yeah. No, so of course I discussed that. Yeah. I discussed that with Mel. Sorry.
Did you think Mar was going to send you into it?
No, and if you actually watched closely with the episode, at Tribal Council, as you know, everyone always gets a question. Or especially when it comes down, when it's down to the final, 6, 5, 4, there aren't many people in the game, so everyone gets a question. Some people get multiple questions. And you will notice that at the final four Tribal Council, everyone else was shown as to having a question, whereas my question was not shown at all.
Mm-hmm.
Now, of course, this was a year ago, so I can't remember exactly what the question was and what I said, but I was 100% certain that I was going home at that point. I'd spoken to everyone. I said to everyone, I'm like, we're at final four. There are no idols or advantages. There's no reason for you to lie to me, and that I will not value, that basically I won't respect, the move if you blindside me at this point, because, there's no need to, because I know that, if the name is me, then there's absolutely nothing that I can do. And everyone was, was honest with me. So Sophie and Nick both had said to my face, I'm voting for you. So I knew that Mar was the only other option at that point. So, of course, tried to use any leverage that I could at that point. But I felt as if I was really fighting a losing battle, because, I'm saying, vote out your closest ally who has played a very similar game to you that could, potentially steal votes from you, because we'll be splitting votes. And, vote out someone who, at that point, neither of us saw as a threat to our games.
Yeah.
And also, if she votes out Sophie, then Sophie is 100% a vote for Nick at Final Tribal Council, and she probably advocates for people. So in that situation, and we've gone over the numbers, Nick wins if I go to Final 3 with Mar and Nick.
Yeah, and she
did what was right for her.
She had enough faith that you would respect the game enough to still vote for her.
100%.
Now, did she take you out for these cocktails though that she promised?
We have been out for cocktails a number of times. So many times we've become really close friends. Since the experience, we live, fairly close to each other in Melbourne, so we catch up every, month or so. I can't remember if she's actually paid for any. I feel as if we
should have paid.
If anything, I know exactly. I feel like
she had the $500.
Oh, was it 500? I can't remember what it was.
Apparently, no, it wasn't. Sorry, it's 200. Sorry,
I was going to say, I feel as if it was 200 or something like that.
Melbourne,
we've gone out for plenty.
500. That was the big.
Oh, okay.
Upgrade. Yeah.
I wonder what season 5 will be.
Yeah, it depends if someone's willing to give them money, like someone did on.
Yeah, that's very true.
It was going to be more, but then I lost a bunch of money at the Crown the night before Survivor. So
that's a shame. We won't go into it now.
But if I won, I would have been like, let's keep some money. I have one last question for you, which I gave you a lot of criticism for earlier on in the game that you may or may not have noticed if you watched. When you received the Rock's Legacy Advantage, you said in confessional, "Oh, this is good. I'm going to tell people I have something, because you got to tell them I have something, but I'm not going to tell them that it's an advantage that I can pass on, because that's a huge risk. You do that, and people will vote you out."
Of course.
You went and called it a legacy advantage, and anyone that's watched Survivor, which is like everyone but Joe,
of course, exactly, knows that what a legacy advantage is, that you have to will that to someone, of course. And I feel as if at that point, a lot of the confessionals surrounding the legacy advantage were sort of convoluted, and they weren't always in the correct order. So I might have, like already told someone about that before I said that I wasn't going to. So, and for me, like, of course, the less people that know about an advantage, the better, because as soon as one person knows, then everyone knows
you had the right move. Everyone knows you had an advantage because you won the rock, right? And you're like, I'm going to tell them it's an expiring idol or an idol that's good for final five or something. I think you said. But
there are a few things a few things that sort of come into that, because I knew that there was at that point that any advantage or any game that is live in the Kubadang tribe, like the Love Rocks, is live at the Winyu tribe, and that if I'm to lie unnecessarily about something, like what sort of advantage that I do have, that it can that's something that can very easily be fact checked, and then that sort of builds distrust with people that I'm working with. So I felt as if the best thing for me to do was to be honest about it. And I think when I did get it, we only had one tribal council before merge. And the way in which that I framed it was that, I was going to use this advantage for the tribe. We were going to use it to further the tribe as a whole. Even though it's my advantage, it's all of our advantage. And
it's always a classic, and it's ever true.
Yeah,
it's a classic.
Of course, exactly. It's going to be played on me, but still, it's ours.
Me or someone I want to save for me, but not just generally everyone.
And again, in the edit, it didn't really at Final 10. Also, it didn't highlight it, but I was actually the first person to throw my own name out. It might be a survivor first, but at Final 10, I knew that, obviously the Winyu people were going to have to be coming for someone. So I told a few people within the Kubadang tribe, you have my blessing, go ahead, throw my name out, say that you're willing to jump ship, you're going to work, you're going to vote against Mykl, you're going to vote against me, you don't trust me, whatever you need to say. Get those votes on me, because I've got this legacy advantage. It can only be played at 10 or 5. And I was 100% regardless going to be playing at 10, because I knew if I didn't play it at 10, then of course it's a legacy. Then everyone has an added incentive to vote me out at 9, 8, 7, 6. And I'm not even going to make it to 5 to play the legacy, because everyone else wants it.
That's a fantastic strategy. Where was that in the end?
I don't know, but I was the one that I was telling everyone, vote, throw all the votes on me, because then we actually have the power, because all their votes are nullified, because out of the 4 Winyu votes, 3 of them voted for me. So there was only one of them that really had a valid vote that wasn't mine, although no one really had valid votes in the end, because everyone had an advantage. But
I love that strategy, and I think it's a really smart one, and I think it was also a really good. It makes sense about the legacy advantage. Anna kept going on about in confessionals about how she doesn't want an advantage because she thinks they're a disadvantage, which is true.
100%.
But in this game, everyone had so many advantages that didn't really matter. It's like, oh, what's your advantage?
Exactly.
I've got a super idol. I've got an idol of this.
I know.
There was so many that no one was threatening for having them.
Yep, exactly. And I mean, after the Final 10, though, no one really had advantages except for the vote steals block. So, very minor sort of advantages in comparison. But wanted to, sort of build trust and build favor with my allies by, helping, because if I'm getting them to throw votes on me, then that's a vote that's not going to potentially be on Nick, be on Sophie, be on Ma. They're happy that, that I'm volunteering and saying, throw the votes on me. I'll dive in front of the bullet.
I'll use my
even though I've got a bulletproof vest on.
You're using it for the tribe, like you said you would.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Look, you're in a great position socially, and you're also in that position, which I'm sure you probably saw, that like, once they got rid of James, then people probably wanted to get rid of Nick, and you were the guy that people like, oh, well, Mykl could beat Nick. Like that was probably the discussion, I think, a lot in,
I know, yeah.
So
it was very frustrating.
He's the one that can beat Nick.
Oh, I know, and then I turned out to be an absolute flop. It was very disappointing. I played a few of these, and I always do, so much better than I actually did in the challenges.
I don't think you were a flop. Nick was just exceptionally good. Like all that training he did, all that like starvation rain training he did, standing in the middle of a storm doing a pool, he was all prepared.
Yeah. Well, actually, here is some tea for you, and I'm not too sure if anyone's actually gone over it yet.
Yeah, bring it.
But with the Final 6 immunity challenge, So the challenge where we were going up and down the hill, filling up that water bottle, or the bottle of water with, the plate, and you could fill your mouth with water, or you could, So in that challenge, actually, the top two ended up going through to a puzzle, and it should have been Ma and I, which means that Nick wouldn't have been in the final two. He wouldn't have won the immunity at all. He would have very likely gone at final 6. So the edit actually showed that Sophie only filled Nick's bottle once. She filled it 3 times, which took his over mine. And he ended up being in the final 2. And, I had even just, even from, Prod, Dan saying, oh, this is really, we feel really horrible, terrible for you. It's really hard to edit this. So yeah, that was really sort of
that is really interesting and a lot of tea. Did they tell Sophie not to do it after the first time or only after the third time?
I feel as if it wasn't sort of picked up immediately. So I feel as if, with, these challenges, and I think that Ma had, I feel as if, people try and bend the rules with these challenges and, see what they can get away with. And then sometimes, of course, people will, go too far and then, go do something that's outside of the rules. And that, that was something that wasn't picked up immediately, but, when it was too late, and, Sophie, took herself out of the challenge, but that didn't really help because, she had, no shot because she was helping Nick and not filling up her own.
We also, though, and I say we discussed this a bit on the Orca Pod of whether it was okay or not to be helping. And what we compared it to is we understood from John that in the trivia challenge that he was running around behind you, giving you the answers to help you defeat Wolf. That was what we understood.
Yes. So that was completely true.
It's not dissimilar in a way. It feels like it is. It feels like it is different, but not really, is it?
And I'm not too sure that if, the outcome would have been different, and if that assistance would have gotten me over the line and I would have won. James is, got no immunity, very likely is the person that goes home, then if things are different. But, that was something that, I was, it was very evident that I was like, I think I yelled out as we were running across, the field back and forth, to all of those stations. I was saying to John, basically drop everything you're doing, and help me out. If you want to stay in this game, then you help me because I'm neck and neck with James. I'm the one person that can beat him. So if you want to stay in this game, then basically, do what you can to, and this, all of Canberra could have heard this. It was that loud, but and that was not something that, we'll pull up on. And again, it's like, as I said, like it's, who knows where the line is drawn, because, in the last few challenges, Ma and I, were, working together, like we were showing each other puzzle pieces, calculating all those things. I feel as if though in those last 2 challenges, it was to our own detriment. I feel as if we both hindered each other and we held each other back because we were both trying to focus on 2 instead of 1 puzzle. And that just was never going to work out.
I think the bottle thing it's an interesting idea. It's an interesting issue because it felt like it was over the line, but what is the line then? And I think it's a really interesting question for LRGs, and also like this, they were doing it in real Survivor. Liz gave up trying to do her fire and was just getting water for
Yes, that's true in Australian Survivor.
The lifeguard guy, for his name now, he's so unrememberable. To help him beat Simon.
Oh God,
right? That's what she was doing. It's pretty much the same thing.
Definitely.
I think that it's. I agree. People will take liberties, and I think I don't know what they did in Canberra. When I played Melbourne, they'd explain the challenge to us, and then you could go ask questions in private, like, can I do X? Can I do Y? Which is really useful to find out what you can get away with. Because you don't want to say in front of everyone if you got like, I got a secret strat.
I've got a strategy, exactly, and I want to see if I can, have an upper hand over everyone else. No, that's great. And that wasn't something that was done in Canberra Survivor. I think, of course, the rules to each challenge were explained, but there was sort of And I mean, if there are any sort of, I feel as if the challenges were generally really well explained. So there were generally questions, oh, can I do this? Can I do that? Or should I do this? Or should I, so it was all pretty cut and dry.
We're all players, and we all get a thought in our head. How can I manipulate this?
Of course. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, we were all constantly doing, I mean, I was doing it. I was like, how can I do this? How can I bend the rules? How can I, exactly. Like I feel as if most people were. And of course, there were points in the game where many of us bent the rules or didn't do things according to, the book necessarily. But,
and going to what Sophie did, I think in my view, I think at the end of the day, it's part of Survivor, right? She decides to so obviously help Nick, and then Nick wins immunity. Then it could be incumbent on you and Ma to go, this is just bullshit. Like, she's just filling up his bottle. Let's vote her out. Like, it's social risk.
Yeah, of course. Exactly. And I feel as if Sophie was smart enough to recognize that. I think she knew that. And I feel as if that's why Ma and I were the swing votes at that final 6 stage, because Anna and Mel were both like, oh my God, well, Sophie's clearly, up Nick's ass, that's, as I think Mel had said or something. But, I think we all sort of had that sort of thought process where, she's clearly working with him and she's, not showing any sort of interest to work with us. So, whereas Ma and I were, I guess a bit more fluid with that. What we should have done on the flip side was got them both, Anna and Mel, to drop theirs and then just help Ma and I get over the line so we can stop Nick.
That's right.
Because I feel as if, and it wasn't really highlighted, but it was sort of like anyone but Nick. At final 6, we were all just like, we've got to try and stop him. But that clearly didn't work.
Anyway, that was all such a lot of wonderful insight. And I know you just did the other interview and you're traveling tomorrow, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
Anytime.
To put this on, and everyone will get to enjoy your insights. You were such a fantastic look. I know you feel like the edit's done you dirty, but I do think perhaps based on the conversations that's true. But you were still such a fantastic character. You really popped on the screen. I think everyone enjoyed you as a person on the show. You were able to show a lot of strategy, perhaps not as much as you felt should be shown, but I saw you as a strategic player. I saw you as a smart player, and I thought you as a really social player who was playing a really strong game and had a really good shot of winning at the end if you got there. So, I think you were a really great contribution to this season. I think you always had a great way of coming across as really measured, which can be really difficult in these games. Reasonably calm most of the time, and just clear-headed in your thinking. And I think that's a real compliment for anyone to have in these games, because there's such a pressure environment. Even compared to a real Survivor, it's nothing like we haven't done that. But obviously, playing,
yeah, of course.
We've played it. I'm sure some of us have played a 30 or 40-day org, right? You have more time to work things out
definitely
the 2-day game. So I think that shows the sort of quality player you are, and I really enjoyed watching you quite a lot. I think it was really good.
Thank you. I really do appreciate it. I was going to say such a glowing review of that season. Can you edit the next season that I'm on?
I will. Yes. Well, I do a bit of editing. I dabble.
Yeah.
I help Niall with
very
season
nice.
4. She's going to be the season 4 master, but I
looking forward to it.
I've
and looking forward to seeing you in season 3 too.
Yes. Well, they just did a cast assessment video tonight.
I did.
I saw. I think the show, but it's worth a watch. And I do believe
we'll definitely check it out.
No offense to Canberra or you, but I feel that Playing with Fire had probably the most interesting overall cast of all 16 people that you've seen in LRG. It's a lot of top quality characters. People are familiar with me and Annabelle, who are big characters, and some people might know Laurel, who's like a huge character. And then, but you can see us being big factors, but there are numerous other people, maybe not to the level of us, but really high energy characters. And it was a really effective casting process in terms of who they got on there, and it created a really interesting game. So I look forward to watching it play out, in the video.
Me too. Can't wait.
Thanks, Mykl. Cheers.
Thanks so much for having me. Have a good one.
You too, mate.
Well, so that went a long time. I have got Sophie in the she's in the soundproof booth watching backstage, and I can only see like a little image, but I feel like her face is getting angrier and angrier as Mykl continued to just like heap this shit on her. Oh my god. I can't wait for her to bring in the right of replies. So let's bring her in right now. Welcome, Sophie.
Hello, CK. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you? I didn't appreciate until I watched that back how much and you know we're fans of yours on the Orca Pod. You know that. But Mykl was just laying in there about you were this up Nick's ass. Like, how did you feel about that statement?
Yeah, look, I mean, Mykl made claims that others have made before, so that's fine. But I don't know. Like, I mean, he probably should have just come on with you and focused on his own game instead of mine. Really, and yeah, I don't know. A lot of that is all very new information to me that Mykl just said. So very interesting. I know
John
you
has a question for you. Is Mykl a flog as well, based on that?
Actually, you know what, John? I might have to consider that. No, I like Mykl. He's lovely. I just didn't realize that he felt so offended by my game, I suppose. I guess when you're out fourth and the person that comes third, like, it's easy to sort of find somebody, to make a bit of a focal point, I suppose. I don't know. Yeah.
Now, you've been one of the most avid watchers, always commenting on our show, which is much appreciated. I think some of the other people haven't been as frequent watchers. I assume they all listen to it after the fact, but you've always been a regular live watcher. And we're a huge fan of the game you've played. My only disappointment with you was coming into the end, you seem to get this real pessimistic attitude that you couldn't win. Now, was that like trying to undersell yourself going into sort of the final 5, final 4 votes, or is that how you actually felt?
I think so. I played a very, very social game, and I don't know the game of Survivor very well. I watch Australian Survivor because we have sweeps at my work. That's pretty much the only reason. I don't really know. I don't know the strategy behind the game. So I think the further that I got, I was kind of thinking, if I don't get voted out, like, that's pretty cool. And I just didn't know that at the final tribal council, like, you have to have made moves, you have to have a resume and things like that. And being the social person that I am, I sort of thought, I think the closer that I was getting, I was kind of thinking, I don't think I've done enough here. Like, I don't know how it really works. So yeah, I just sort of, I guess for me, like, I didn't have confidence that I could win, only because, and like, right from the word go, loyal Sophie, all I wanted to do was go to the final 3 with my alliance. Like, that's just, in my mind, I'm like, that's so cool. Little did I know that Ma was playing such an absolutely brilliant game. And so was Nick.
Yes. Nick's game was more overt, and Sophie and Mars, I think, is obvious to the viewer, but I don't think it was obvious to everyone there. No, the sort of game she was playing. I don't think you deserve to be. I don't think you deserve to be. I don't think you deserve to be a 0 vote finalist. I understand why in that final tribal with those 7 voters, while with against Ma and Nick, that you were a 0 vote finalist. I think that it was somewhat to be expected when we got there, but I don't think your game was worthy of no votes. Just speaking frankly.
That's very kind. And I think just hearing Mykl and his thoughts on it, now I'm sort of understanding, like, the further I went, the more I was then the person that everybody's taking to the end because they can beat. And, like, that's what happened. So do you know what I mean? I just sort of, people, I guess, had probably written me off towards the end because of decisions I'd made, or because I was up Nick's ass, or whatever. Like, it's sort of, that's seeing the edit, seeing people speak on the podcast and things, talking to people after the game. I think that for me is the way that I was taken through to the end.
I want to touch on the Nick relationship, and I think there's nothing wrong with having an ally who's you feel really you trust and they trust you, and you stick together, and you're working towards a mutual outcome. There's nothing wrong with that. My curiosity was piqued though when Nick threw a vert on you to make you worried, to make you feel less safe in the game, which I thought was actually a really great strategy. But then for some reason confessed to you about it, and it didn't seem to bother you that he'd done that. That was the one bit that I was like, maybe you shouldn't be trusting this guy as much as you are.
Well, see, CK, that's the thing. Like, I just don't understand the strategy behind it. And to me, like, I thought it was fucking hilarious. Like, to be honest, it was, you saw my face in the edit and I'm like, what? Like, and then it was kind of just, yeah, I don't know. Like, I actually thought it was quite funny when he told me, but still in my mind, I'm like, no, like I've said the whole time, I'm going to the end with this guy. Like, it's fine. It's cool. I mean, obviously at the time, and Mel touched on it a lot, like she'd had 5,000 votes against her. I'd had one and it was like such a big deal. But yeah, like I sort of, I don't know. I guess that's just the, my like loyalty, and that was what I really hung my hat on, was my loyalty, especially to Nick. Ma was in our 3 as well, but Nick and I, from he was the first person I spoke to, and I noticed something that everyone's mate, the Orca, had named him by name on the first challenge. And I beelined for him and I said, look, I've just noticed that guy said your name. So I feel, is there a pre-game connection? Like, that's probably going to screw your game. Like, if you want to work together, let's, if you've got my back, I've got yours. And that's sort of what happened. So yeah, like it, I think with that rogue vote that Nick gave me, I actually don't know why he kind of told me. Like, it probably would have had
that was a dumb move. Because that should have pissed you off. In my view, that's what I'm getting at. That should have pissed you off. We're together. You should not be voting for me, rogue or not. There's weird shit happening. There's all sorts of advantages. Who knows what could happen with a risky vote like that? You never know. And like, why would you do that to me? We're supposed to be aligned. Like, and look, if I was him, I don't mind the move. He should have brought it up at Tribal Council. I think he did. But like for the first time, should have been the reveal at Tribal Council. He did. And then Mel's like, vindication. It wasn't me like I was being accused of. But like, but why? I just never understood. But that to me should have been to you like, maybe I shouldn't trust this guy as much as I do, because your ally should never write down your name.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess too, at that time, he had the immunity necklace and then he went on to win the next one. And so, yeah, and that's kind of one of those things as well, that just not knowing how to play the game. As you said, like if that was you sitting in my position and that happened, you'd probably be like, fuck this guy, he's out. Like, see you later.
Yes.
But you know the strategy behind the game.
I would struggle to keep my composure, which is actually the problem, because
CK probably just throw hands.
Yeah, your actual calm reaction to it is what would have made him feel secure in revealing that information. So he would reveal it and go, oh, if she reacts badly to this, I might have to do something about it. Whereas I would probably not be able to mask my anger about it. And then he would know I'm mad about it. And then he would actually have to do something about it. Or I'd be doing something about it. He's like, oh, Sophie's cool with it. All right, let's just roll on. While we're talking about Nick, there was a lot of conversation about Bottlegate with Mykl there before. Now, I've already made it clear where I sit. The rule, you can do what you want. Unless they say don't, you can do what you want, right? And no one stopped Mykl and John helping, trying to help Mykl beat James Wolfe. And you filled the bottle twice before before they said you can't do it. I don't see why you weren't allowed to. What's your view on this?
Thank you, CK. So many people are just bitter and twisted about me helping Nick in the water bottle challenge. And it wasn't until I was actually doing it that I was kind of like, do I just help Nick? Like, I don't think I'm going to do any good at this. Like, and if I'm terrible at puzzles. And so like, Nick, he's my number one guy. Like, let's just maybe, I don't know, I'll help him. We weren't told that we couldn't. So, and again, me not knowing Survivor, like, it's just one of those things. I'm like, I don't know, I'll give it a go. And so, yeah, it was a couple of times. And then Dan was like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, fuck, why can't I do that? Like, are you serious? And so I then got really pissed off at myself. I was pissed off at myself because then I was like, that was really dumb. And then all of a sudden I was like, what if Nick gets penalized? So I chose to storm off in a rage and sit myself out of the challenge, because I thought, oh, if I don't know, like, I don't want Nick to get in trouble. Like, you know, I don't want to ruin his game. He might vote me out. I don't know. Yeah. So I sort of, I sat myself out of the challenge. They didn't like disqualify me. But yeah. And so then it has, so like, I'm actually really glad though that Mykl admitted to you that he had John helping him in a challenge. He was helping Mara in challenges. He even admitted on the on brand pod last night that in the scissors, paper, rock that he and I were playing for the Love Rock advantage.
Yeah.
He was like, yeah, Ma was there telling me what Sophie was doing so that I knew what to do for the scissors, paper, rock. And I'm like, are you joking? Like, that's
Hang on. What do you mean she was
that's
telling
blatant
him what to do?
cheating.
Telling which scissors? Well, hang on. What?
So what I understood from it last night, it was kind of like, oh, haha, yeah, no, like Ma was there telling me what like to do for scissors, paper, rock so that it was different to mine. And I'm like, I thought in the game, I actually thought that I saw that sort of happen because we were standing back to back. And I thought,
the back to back, yes.
Yeah, we were standing back to back, and then we'd turn around and show what we'd scissors, paper, rocked.
Yeah.
And I actually thought I saw somebody in my peripheral like doing a hand signal. And I was like, oh, no, surely not. And then I asked Dan, I was like, was there any footage of anybody helping Mykl with that? And he's like, no, I don't think so. And then last night he admitted it. And I'm like, yeah.
Controversial.
So I thought, pardon?
Controversial, just as, is there anything wrong with it? No, because you guys decided to do rock, scissors, paper. And if somebody wants to help someone out, then, you know, that's their prerogative. If they get caught, then there's going to be consequences. Now, I think John has a vested interest because I've accused him now of participating in similar conduct in the James Wolfe victory at Merge. But he thinks the difference is he didn't do the challenge for Mykl. It would have been disallowed for me to physically put rocks on Michael's plate and get him to 8 before James. I see what you're saying, but half that challenge was mental. And if you were running around, because you're the smart guy, John, who can remember the answers, you're giving, I'm not saying Michael's dumb, but obviously he wanted your help getting the answers. You're able to give them. That's half the challenge. It's part of the challenge. I get what you're saying, but there's no different to the mental or physical when it comes to that challenge.
Yeah,
in my view.
I absolutely agree. And so I think the official line has been, oh, we're fine for the sharing of information, but we're not fine for the physical helping in challenges. And you've made a great point, CK, because the sharing of information in that challenge was half the challenge. You know, so I 100% agree with that. So yeah, I think it's just really interesting that everybody can come out with their pitchforks and grab me for helping Nick with the water bottle. But I just think people probably need to remember that it's a grey area, and you know they were also in the grey area for a lot of challenges as well. And people were claiming, I'm sorry about me, people were claiming that I helped Nick in multiple challenges, and I'm like, Nick did not need my help in any challenges. Like, he and they're all claiming that we've got this like challenge thing going on, and I'm like, no, I absolutely did not help Nick in other challenges like that. I came second to him in 3 challenges.
That's right. And you were fighting hard in the Lamington one, fighting hard to win that. You fought really hard.
I wanted that. Like, I wanted that completely, and that really hurt the most. Like, I mean, physically and mentally. And I had a little cry in my confessional after that. But yeah, like I wanted that for my own self-gratification. And again, this is the thing. Like, I would have just been so stoked to win it, and I was stoked to come second. But yeah, like for me, it wasn't about having the immunity and Nick not having the immunity. It was about me maybe winning that for my own self-gratification. So yeah, the challenges, as I said, have had grey areas, and that's fine. But I think before everybody comes at me with pitchforks, they probably just need to remember the things that they did too.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And look, look, my view is anything goes unless they tell you not to. right?
Yeah.
And they told you to stop, and you stopped. So what more
Yeah,
can they
for
ask
sure.
of you? You know?
Yeah, for sure.
That's like, sorry, John's messaging me in like Messenger. He doesn't like my take on this issue. He's jumped out of this chat. He's sending me separate messages.
John!
But you know, look, I stand by my take on the issue.
Yeah, no, thank you. Me too.
How do you feel? Like we feel so. Mykl's come off. He doesn't love his edit. You know, that's clear. Now, your edit, we have loved. Have you loved your edit?
Yeah, I was really concerned, and I had lots of conversations with Dan about it post game. About how my edit would look, and knowing that I got 0 votes at final tribal, like, don't purple me, and you know, I just didn't like, I hope I'm not seen as a goat, like that kind of thing. And I was actually really stressed about it. But then seeing my edit and seeing, I loved my pre-merge edit. I mean, there wasn't a lot of content for Kubadang pre-merge because we only went to tribal twice, but also having an ultimate sacrifice opportunity as well, like that gave me some good content. Yeah, I've really liked my
yes.
and
Let's talk about the ultimate sacrifice and the content that you've given here. I have to say, of all the people that tried to lie about the ultimate sacrifice, which I always found to be generally absurd, your attempt to lie was the worst.
Wasn't it terrible? Oh my god. I am the first to admit, like, what was I thinking? It's actually embarrassing, CK. It's actually embarrassing. Oh, yeah. I think for me, like, you know, the whole, there's a saying, and please tell me what it is because I can't think of what it is, but it's like a public idol is something, so you keep your idols hidden. What?
Yeah.
That thing. And so for me, leaving Ultimate Sacrifice and the short time I had walking over, I was like, how can I, like, what do I do? I've got to lie about it. Like, I'll just say Haley got it. Haley, in fact, absolutely did not get it. James Wolfe was, in fact, 100% right when he called me out about it. But yeah,
his approach was probably not the best approach.
Not for me. Other people might be fine with that, but for me, I was kind of like, chill, bro, like calm down a little bit, you know, have a conversation with me. But
I think he just met you, and that's why this was so good on TV, right? Because we could already see as a viewer how strong you are as a person and strong you'd be in your convictions, and that you wouldn't take shit from anyone, right? There are people in that scenario that would do nothing and then just go to someone else and go, he just did this to me. Like, let's get fucking rid of this guy. Like, you know, and that would be their approach, right? And there are people that, when attacked like that, would prefer to just hit right back. And so I don't think he estimated that you were going to be that sort of person, and then got a rude awakening, which was such good TV. Like, I'm glad he did it.
Absolutely. And I actually think you've hit the nail on the head, because I think as well, post-merge, like, he was in a completely different spot to me. He was coming from the minority at Winu. I was in the majority, sitting quite pretty at Kubadang, like, and at merge. So he was kind of in a spot where he just had to do whatever he could. And, you know, and that's fine. But I think you're right. I think he underestimated my how I would respond to that. And I call a spade, and I was kind of like, you just come off with a flog. Like, honestly, what are you doing? And then, but the thing for me,
John thinks it was one of the most memorable storylines of the entire season. It was quality.
John. And then, like, how he's then going and talking to people in my alliance, and, you know, I'm just like, what an idiot. Like, are you dumb? In my confessional, I'm like, you are so dumb. Like, how dumb. But yeah, so I mean, and he was 100% correct. Like,
yes,
he did like a dirty nose. And I just had to keep going with the lie, because there were people. With my ultimate sacrifice advantage, I was always honest with my alliance. They knew about it, and it was even in one of the episodes. We're standing under an umbrella, CK. I know that's
no umbrellas, boo.
And I'm just like, I've got an idol, and Mar's kind of like, oh, cool. And then, like I'd said to Nick, I've got and he's like, oh, yeah. So my alliance always knew, and I never lied to my alliance about it. But then James is going and you know, talking to other people, and I was like, no, like, don't do that. But yeah,
I think the thing is though, like, and this is the thing that I was thinking about, and it came to me. Why lie? Like, I get the lie, but
yeah,
half the tribe's been to the ultimate sacrifice by now. Everyone knows there's all sorts of shit there, right? And like, you got the punishment, so to try and pass off the punishment as somehow being like, that's not even on the menu. Like, people
was
have
really
seen
dumb.
the menu.
It was honestly so stupid. Like, I don't even know why. We didn't know what the punishments were on the menu, though, to be fair.
But why
Like,
would it be a punishment for you to have to set up a challenge?
so in my mind, in my mind, Haley got the ultimate sacrifice, right? Haley got the advantage, and then Haley's disadvantage was a social disadvantage, having to like pick anybody to sit out the next 2 challenges or whatever. And so, like, I thought, oh, that could work. Yeah, let's just run with that. It bloody didn't work. Like, how stupid. But also,
okay, and I just want to dig down on that because that wasn't covered in the edit. And at least it gives some explanation of how you were thinking it would work.
Yeah.
But if Haley was going to take a person out of the purple tribe for 2 challenges when they are down on numbers, yeah, I think maybe Nick might be looked at.
why would you think that? Nick was not a challenge beast at all, CK. No,
And that would
I
actually
know.
be
And
an advantage. Like, I understand. Like, I don't feel in this season when there were so many advantages that it really mattered what people had, because everyone had some firepower.
Yeah.
And look, your alliance knew, and that's what mattered, right? And we knew what James was trying to do, and like Malcolm was right there, and Malcolm like obviously didn't know about it, but I'm sure he knew you had something. Like, he's not an idiot. Like.
yeah, but here's me thinking, oh, all these people won't put 2 and 2 together. Like, what do you mean? But no, like, when you play a season with super fans, they fucking put 2 and 2 together like that. Like, they are on it. And like, yeah, it was just silly little Sophie, like, again, not understanding the game. And I was like, how stupid. So when you ask about my edit, like, that is the part that horrifies me about my edit.
Other than those
like,
silly
cut it all
moments.
together, Daniel.
Other than that silly moment, and I think the Nick vote reaction, which I think are both the strange reaction, I don't think you came across as someone who wasn't familiar with the game in the edit.
Yeah. So I casually watch, and when I casually watch, like, I casually watch and then follow them on Instagram. That's what I'm like. I don't.
It's very millennial of you.
Pardon?
It's very millennial of you.
Yeah.
Are you a millennial? I'm assuming you are. Maybe you're a Gen Z.
I don't know. I can't remember what anyway.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, so I don't, like, I've never picked up on strategy. You know, and Ma has talked about it a bit. Like, she's like, I've watched so much Survivor and I know how to like talk to the jury and things like that. And I'm like, oh, I've never picked up on any of that before watching a few seasons of Australian Survivor. You know what I mean? So I don't watch the US Survivors or South Africa or any of that stuff. I only know about like South Africa because of the group chat. But yeah, so I had some idea, like, not as little as Joe, but not as much as anyone else.
How did you go about why did you apply? Did you know someone? Were you a recruit? How did you get on to Canberra Survivor?
So I was supposed to play season 1. Dan
I think you would have done better in you obviously did well here, but I think you would have done better in season 1 because season 1 was less like super fan strong.
Less cutthroat. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. So Dan and I are very good friends, and he was like, oh, I'm doing this kind of like project. Do you think you'd be interested in playing? And I was like, well, what is it? And he said, it's Survivor. It's like a 2-day. And I'm like, what? Okay, sure. Like, I can play, no problems. And so I actually have lower back issues. So my back wasn't good for season 1. So Alex was actually my replacement for season 1. And then when season 2 rolled around, he's like, I'd like you to put in a video, an audition video, and see if we can cast you. And I was like, okay. And then he did. So yeah, so I sort of got cast, I suppose, by default. I wasn't one of the 5,000 alternates that played season 2. I was I was
You were there. You were
original
there to
Ma.
play.
Yeah. So
Mars popped in and she says, "Hello, Sophie."
hello, Ma.
um, but did you have has this made you more of a Survivor fan? Do you think you
Oh,
would
yeah.
watch America now?
No, I haven't got time for that. Like, honestly, I'm too busy with everything else that I do in my life. And I crewed season 3 and I
Yeah.
crewed season 1, played season 2, crewed season 3. I'll be crewing season 4. So yeah, like I love the behind the scenes stuff. And I'm in like the casting team and things like that. So yeah, I love doing all of that and helping Dan because he commits so much of his life to this and he's an absolute superstar and I love that I can help him like to make his life a little bit easier as well. So yeah, it's
Dan is incredible. I met Dan at Melbourne Survivor
yes.
4, which I was part of the organising committee that which Ma sort of like coordinated everything, and then a few of us were helping out below that, putting it together. And Dan came down just to crew and do some filming, and I think he drove all the way from Canberra down to the Mornington Peninsula where we were filming it. And then filmed and then drove back. Like that's how he's not just dedicated to his own program, but to helping out other LRGs like that is huge.
Absolutely.
To do something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he loves it. Like he has such a love for it. And having conversations with him about season 3 and season 4, like it's just so interesting to see how his brain ticks and to see the things that he's thinking about, and then even like I can suggest some things. And so when you ask if I'm more of a fan, yeah, absolutely, because now in the organizing phase and things like that, my brain's always thinking about bits and pieces. So yeah, it's definitely, and just being part of the community as well. You'd probably know yourself being part of the Melbourne community. Like it's just so much fun, and you bring all these Survivor nerds together, and it's just a good time. Like it's always a good time.
It does create a wonderful community. Do you?
Yes.
You said you wouldn't watch the US Survivor. Do you think you're more likely to watch other Australian LRGs, which are sort of community adjacent?
Oh,
Is
I
that
love
more
Backyard.
of interest to you?
I love Backyard, and guess what? I'm so excited for your season of Melbourne.
Well, you know John and Ma, so that's like, and then
Yes.
you've watched Annabelle, myself, and Max, so you sort of.
I know. By the way, where is the rest of the A team tonight? Like
Annabelle is preparing for this yoga retreat that she's about to go on. And Max is in Perth, I believe. The last couple of weeks he's been traveling for work a bit.
Okay.
He's got me, but I thought that
I make it all the way to final tribal, and then I don't even get to talk to Annabelle and Max. Love you, CK, but like the A team all season, and then but that's fine.
Missing out on Annabelle is admittedly a sad affair for anyone. But I thought with a one-on-one we can get into the detail a bit more.
It's been great.
No, I really appreciate you coming on. We were huge fans, and I really appreciate you. I'm pretty sure you watched every episode that we did live. You had a lot of comments. You filled us in on a lot of the background, which was so useful. I really, really appreciate that. And, like I always, at the end of these things, I say how much of a good player people were, like I give them a pop-up. But I don't know if I need to say it because I've said it through this whole interview. We really enjoyed what you brought to the show. I thought you were such a good character. I love the way you stood up for yourself. I love what you put into the game. And as I said, like you don't deserve to be a 0 vote finalist, but I understand why you were. I'm sure you understand why you were.
Yeah.
I don't think you were necessarily a GOAT. I think in the right combination of people, you might have had a chance. It's just you went to the end with the 2 best players. So there's not much you could do. Like if you're there with a Mel, who I think would have been very popular as well, and Malcolm, like there's a lot of popular people, but I think there's ones where you can be quite a competitive position. You were just there with the best, but I think that you are such a well-deserving 3rd place on this season. And I'm so glad you were able to make it all the way. And you gave us such quality content. And thank you for being such a supporter of the Orca Pod.
Thank you so much, CK. I really appreciate having the opportunity to come on and speak with you. It's been lots of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and so that's the interviews we're doing today, the 3. And then next week, as I said at the start of the program, I'm going to have an interview with Nick and then with Ma, and maybe like a little bit of them together, like in the middle. And it'll be very much like a deep dive for Ma on her game and how she won. And then coming up from that, very exciting news, following the week after, because Annabelle will be away on the yoga retreat and Max has become incredibly unreliable. I will be doing some coverage on Brisbane Survivor, and I'm not going to be doing like every week like we've done here, because they also have an on-brand podcast that's covering it quite well with a lot of the Canberra Survivor alumni. But we will sort of look at the first 4 episodes, break it down, consider what they've done, and also, how they're going as a first-time effort. I think it's really impressive. And joining me for that, following her in-depth deep dive interview next week, will be La Madrina herself. Ma will be joining me to break down the first 4 weeks of Brisbane Survivor. So that is what's coming up. The next 2 weeks, we're going to have plenty of Ma. I know you're all just like, oh my God, I love watching Ma so much on Canberra. And I've now have getting withdrawals. Well, she's going to be on here 2 weeks in a row. Plus, also, you can watch her on Melbourne Survivor. So you can never have enough Ma. She's always going to be on your screens, fast becoming the queen of LRGs in Australia. Thank you, everyone who watching. This was quite a long one. I didn't mean to go this long, but all these people had get such good interviews, and it was really great to chat with them all. Thank you to everyone that keeps watching and listening thereafter. We always appreciate your support. And I look forward to seeing you next week, same time, when we talk to Nick and Ma. Thanks.